prepare yourselves for the first $30 million non-quarterback in the NFL. You and I were talking about Bosa on Sunday, and I think you made the comment, or I made the comment, maybe we both made the comment, that watching Bosa, it's incredible how he seems to get stronger as the game goes on. And so I did a little, just a little research project, John, on Monday to look at, this was assigned by me to myself, just to take a little look at what Nick Bosa does. And here's the deal. Nick Bosa has 14 sacks this year. Of those 14 sacks, half of them have come in the fourth quarter or overtime. The Bengals game, he had 2 sacks. One of them was an OT. So that's his OT sack. So 7 of his 14 sacks come in overtime. So if it feels like Nick Bosa gets better as the game goes on, if it feels like Nick Bosa is in the best shape on the field while other people are wearing down, then it's true. Nick Bosa's clutch. Nick Bosa I wouldn't even say he gets stronger. He just gets no weaker as the game goes on. He continues to play at the rate that he does early. Now, I do think, historically there are some teams where they score so many points that it's just part of the recipe is they get up by 20. You got to play catch up. Now they're throwing the football. And now they
invented that strategy. It's a pretty normal strategy, right? You want to have a lead, but it was Bill Polian and with Peyton Manning, they built their team around
with Robert Mathis and
Freeney,
Dwight Freeney. But I don't think that's necessarily what's happening here. I think Nick. Do you? I mean, it could be.
I think both those two guys would be like, we were good fucking in the first quarter, fourth quarter. Like Nick Bosa's good no matter what, right? I mean, part of what is making him special is his energy level. Like, Curry's about to break the record. We're recording this before. If you watch Steph, he never stops running. Honestly, he never breathes hard. Do you notice that he's never really huffing and puffing? Ever.
Incredible.
Honestly, I see that. Like, do you ever see Nick, like, tapping out, calling for a breather? It's pretty natural. Defensive linemen do. Aaron Donald does that. Not that often, but some guys do.
When he said he was coming back from the ACL in better shape, he was right. No, it's a good point, John. So 7 of his 14 are in the fourth quarter or overtime. 9 of his 14 are in the second half. The average time of game that has passed when he gets his sack is 39 minutes into the game. So that's the late third quarter. We went way too far on this. You go, all right, well, maybe it is something weird about the offense and the way his team plays, but this is what elite guys do because he is tied with TJ Watt for the most sacks in the fourth quarter or overtime in the NFL this year. He is, again, I want to call him clutch, but it's not clutch. He's just the same all game long, and people wear down as the game goes on. One thing, I'm listening to that It's Better to Be Feared book, the Belichick Brady book that came out in October, Jeff Benedict.
Good.
Yeah, pretty good. Really good. One thing Bill learned early in his career was he misjudged. He didn't carry an extra defensive lineman, and he realized that the game is long. You got a long halftime, which in theory should mean rest, but the game is so long and it's so taxing that taking one less defensive lineman is a mistake because those guys really expend a lot of energy as the game goes on, and it came back to bite them. I mean, ultimately they won their first Super Bowl with Brady, but the point is that was a defensive lineman who can maintain that level of play throughout the game is a rare thing. So here he is with TJ Watt side by side. And so then what do? You do a quick peek of the contract situation. You realize, Nick is getting ready for a contract, John. And his comps are his brother, Joey, who signed a 5-year extension worth $135 million with $102 in overall guarantees. And TJ, whose brother JJ signed a contract or two. TJ, in September, was holding out until he and the owner of the Steelers decided, you know what, guys? Let's do this with a handshake and a look in each other's eye. 4-year, 112, $80 million guaranteed. Now, while his guarantee number was not as big as Joey's, it made him at $28 million per year, the highest paid per year non-quarterback in the NFL. So if Nick is at least as good as TJ, and if Nick is a Bosa, not a Watt, meaning I don't think there's going to be a handshake with the owner and I just want to stay here for the rest of my career negotiation, then how does he not become the first $30 million per year non-quarterback?
Wasn't the Schefter report that Watt had just had enough and he stormed into Rooney's and he banged the we need to get this done, sir. I did just look. Joey and TJ, because obviously as a first-round pick, we've seen guys sign after their third year. It happens a lot. It mainly happens with quarterbacks, right? Josh Allen and Mahomes are two famous guys that signed enormous contracts after their third year. TJ Watt and Joey Bosa both signed their deals, and they were both first-round picks. TJ was later, but Joey was, the third, fourth pick in the draft. They signed their deal after the fourth year. So I do wonder, if you're the Niners, and they are notorious for this, the team that Harbaugh inherited was built with fantastic contracts with Pro Bowl level players that they always signed early. Part of it would be, Joey, we're being aggressive to sign you extra early. Does he have as much leeway as those two guys waited, and they both, TJ did the hold in where he didn't practice. Joey, I just looked on his wiki, said I think it happened right at the end of July, so it was before really camp. Because he held out, remember, as a rookie.
Right. He also got 102 in overall guarantees. So, that wasn't a lot to hold out for at the time.
Yeah, got more money. If one thing we've seen Parag, they will try to extend Joey Bosa Nick Bosa this offseason. To me, the Bosa family has not taken discounts. Part of it is given a discount. Would he sign the TJ Watt deal this offseason with still multiple years of team control, right?
Well, you're
talking
talking
his
about
fifth-year option is going to get picked up? You think that's a no-brainer?
That's what's important, right? Is you're talking about an extension. You're not talking necessarily getting to free agency any earlier if you sign a 4-year extension now versus a 5-year extension in 2 years.
Because he's 2 years away. Debo, for example, when you are not a first-round pick, you get extended when you're a player of his caliber after your third year. Because you don't want to play it out to his free agency and then have to do the whole song and dance with a franchise tag. Then he has a little leverage, right?
Right.
So, Debo is a lock to get extended this offseason, unless he has a horrific injury, which would be fucking devastating and screw the team, and they'd be
Not
screwed. Everyone would be. So, he's getting extended.
Including those businesses that grift off of them.
The Bosa thing's a little interesting. The Niners will try. Does he?
Well, I think it goes back to the number, right? Which is, are we doing a shorter extension? Because the Niners might be willing to do something that looks more like TJ Watt's contract than Joey's contract, right?
I think they would do that. I think they would do that in a heartbeat. Because 4 years basically equals you have him in a contract for 6 more years, right?
TJ, for taking so much less in overall guarantees, at only $1 million more per year in annual value, should have signed a bigger contract relative to what Joey signed, right?
I would say
but these are the comps now.
I saw Albert Breer or someone, maybe it was Rap Sheet, that the salary cap, remember, went down this year to 190 or whatever, or 180. It significantly dropped. It's going to be back approaching 210. So I think if you look over the next couple of years, well, if it's 210, then what's it going to be in 2 or 3, 230, 240? Could you just say, hey, we'll give you 105 and do a Joey Bosa level deal this offseason, and then in a couple years that looks cheap? Because I think the team, if you have TJ Watt, Joey Bosa, and I think Myles Garrett got a similar $100 million too, in 2 years, if those guys keep playing at that level, that's a fucking fantastic deal. Because we talk a lot about the average per year. It's really about the guaranteed money, right?
Yeah, and the percentage of the cap. I mean, that is really the number that matters, right? $30 million per year sounds crazy to us. In 10 years, $30 million per year will sound not crazy.
What's up? I mean, $30 million, but unless the cap, $30 million if on $215 million, $220 million is still a relatively, right? Because $15 million would be 15%. I mean, it's, it's 12, 13% of your cap, one player. Right? Over 10% of a cap.
Yeah, I'm saying in 10 years, if that number, right?
Yeah,
everything will go up, the inflation, so to speak, of it all. Right. So you still need, at the end of the day, that player to be on the field and performing at this level, no matter how much, no matter what that overall cap number, the overall cap number is.
Well, to me, if you look at it, I think Joey's been banged up this season. Now, granted, he's been banged up a lot of his career. Is that he's got 8.5 sacks this year, which is fine, but TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, I think their teams feel, holy shit, this is an incredible deal. We got these guys under contract. They're kicking ass. I think the Joey is yeah, we didn't really have a choice, but we'd like a little bit more. Part of Nick, you give him $30 million a year. You just need this version of Nick for like the next 3 years, right? Like Trent Williams, you gave him all that money. Every week I see he's the highest graded PFF guy in the league in every position. It's like
his run grade was 99.6 this week.
It's like, yeah, we see he tosses people every play. But that's all you want. Now, that's really, you don't need to be 99, but I need A grades. They can be A minuses, they can be A's, they can be A pluses, but you just need to be in the A's, right? Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, both those two guys, like, looking at this, if you do the all-pro team, you can finagle it a little bit, but like, if you could just pick 2 defensive ends for your all-pro team, now TJ technically outside linebacker, but to me, he's pass rusher. It's just Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa, and you just put TJ Watt and make Micah Parsons linebackers.
Yeah,
that's probably what you have to do, because Nick Bosa has to be first team All-Pro, right?
I think
but
so.
So does Myles Garrett have to be first team All-Pro?
Yes.
He does. So those are probably your first 2 team All-Pros, and then you just finagle it. Even though Parsons and TJ, I think you can put him at linebacker. It's like putting like Anthony Davis as like your first team overall, not necessarily this year, but like center, even though he plays different positions.
TJ made it as an edge rusher last year. Him and Myles Garrett.
It gets complicated because Micah Parsons is going to be on the team.
That's fine.
He's a linebacker, though.
It's going to be new linebackers this year.
Who were your linebackers last year?
Fred Warner, Bobby Wagner, Darius Leonard.
Adios to at least 2 of those.
Yeah.
Darius, if you watch the Hard Knocks, he's popping balls out a lot. He's like Josh Norman, but he's actually good. It's like, yeah, I cover and I tackle. I also pop the ball out. It's like, yeah, it's cool when your punch is like your third pitch.
Yes. Ideally, the punch isn't in place of trying to make a tackle.
Yeah. Or if you're a corner covering.
As was the case on the Uzuma third down catch the other day. But we're not relitigating.
No one ever complained that Dion or Darrelle Revis didn't punch, right?
It's like, twice a game when he has to make a tackle. If given the choice.
I think Primetime famously said they don't pay me to tackle.